Most legacy companies fold when they hit a massive market shift. They lack agility to survive. But one manufacturer used two entirely distinct financial crises to develop a specific strategy for outlasting corporate upheaval. The first threat arrived in the early 90s. Fuel prices soared across the Indian market, while a sudden flood of imported vehicles gave consumers endless new options. Legacy automobile factories simply shut down, triggering widespread mass layoffs. Ajay Sharma, a production engineer at a failing plant, found himself out of a job. So he and 10 of his colleagues rented an abandoned garage, salvaged a portion of unused equipment from their shut-down factory, and started their own operation. Operating with almost zero capital acted as a severe operational filter. The team had no resources to chase high sales volumes or luxury aesthetics. They were forced to pivot entirely towards solving narrow, highly specific market pain points that the massive foreign brands were ignoring. Their solution was a commercial model called the Alex One. It was completely utilitarian, engineered specifically to survive the harsh local realities of seasonal floods, extreme heat waves, and heavily damaged infrastructure. Looking at this exploded view diagram of the chassis, you can see their exact priorities. All engineering efforts went into extreme fuel efficiency and a modular cargo bed that could be easily adjusted by the owner. This captured the gritty reality of their operation, building the boxy utility trucks by hand in a cramped space. It also highlights Ajay's core management rule. Every single decision began right there on the factory floor, never in a boardroom. The production engineers held the actual decision-making power. They backed this up with a highly specific incentive structure. Mechanics were actively pushed to submit design tweaks as they worked, and if a suggestion improved the build, that mechanic received a direct financial reward. By pushing authority down to the lowest tier of workers, Alex Motors established a hyper-responsive, self-correcting feedback loop. This allowed them to iterate rapidly, transforming a garage operation into a viable, growing manufacturer that could compete on the national stage. Fast forward a few decades, and the market shifted again. A younger demographic emerged, demanding high connectivity, advanced electronic safety systems, and clean energy alternatives. Alex Motors completely missed the shift. Their utilitarian focus meant they lagged heavily on modern technology. Flashy foreign brands easily swept the market, driving down sales and earning Alex Motors the label of an outdated relic. Ajay was now the CEO, and he faced a definitive choice. He could either sell the declining company off for parts or attempt a total ground-up reinvention of the brand. Most CEOs in this position hire external consultants to diagnose the issue. Ajay did the opposite. He bypassed the executive tier and reverted directly to the company's founding garage values, engaging his engineers to map out the technology upgrades. He recognized that surviving a second major crisis didn't require an entirely new management framework. It required scaling the company's original, scrappy survival instincts to tackle a much more complex set of modern variables. To understand the physical constraints their new vehicle had to conquer, look at this. The dense, overlapping gridlock of rickshaws, cars, and motorbikes perfectly illustrates the hyper-congested urban chaos their customers face daily. Their solution was the launch of the Alex Electra. It was a dedicated hybrid vehicle, specifically optimized for the congestion of that exact urban grid. This organizational chart shows participatory engineering. Isolated vertical columns of engineers and designers dissolve into a single interconnected circular hub. Here, a red arrow node instantly triggers a green iteration cycle. Mistakes and failed prototypes were officially redefined as necessary learning costs. By completely removing the fear of failure, the team's decision-making speed increased dramatically, allowing them to test and refine hybrid components at a massive scale. The Electra's hybrid engine succeeded because they upgraded the human operational culture before touching the hardware. A modernized vehicle will still fail in the market if the systems delivering it to the customer remain stuck in the past. So the company executed an aggressive operational pivot. They cut out the traditional third-party dealerships entirely and established their own company-owned showrooms to distribute the Electra. On this comparison graphic, you can see the old, fragmented supply chain transforming into a closed, direct-to-consumer loop. This allowed them to introduce free after-sales services, rapidly repairing their brand equity and quickly regaining consumer trust. Reclaiming total control over the customer experience was the mandatory final step. It ensured the Electra actually reached its audience effectively, pulling the company back from the brink of bankruptcy. This total structural pivot secured their survival and turned Alex Motors into a case study heavily analyzed in major business schools today. The first lesson from their history is straightforward. Market-disrupting innovation almost always bubbles up from the fringes and the factory floor. It rarely comes from top-down boardroom directives. Second, rapid adaptation requires a psychological safety net. If you want high-speed development, errors in R&D must be budgeted as tuition fees, not treated as career-ending offenses. Finally, upgrading your product requires an equal upgrade to the customer journey. You have to own the entire support experience if you expect to own the market. A legacy company's survival doesn't depend on perfectly predicting the future. It depends on the willingness to operate with the collaborative speed of a startup the moment a crisis hits.